going to becoming a U.S. citizen. So let's say you've married a natural-born citizen of the United States. You get your green card and you continue the marriage. In 3 months, less than 3 years, you can apply for your naturalization. Now at the naturalization, you'll have to show taxes, you'll have to show some good moral character, and you'll have to show that you're still married to this person. Now if you actually get their green card and you decide to divorce, you would wait the 5-year period. Okay? And that's an N400. It's about a 9-page application, very simple questions. As we hand out forms, you're going to see they're all asking the same information but in a different way. So it's nothing strange or intimidating. It's now you have to type it in a smaller box because some of the boxes are impossible to write in. So, but they're online, so it's a little bit easier these days. So what happens at the citizenship interview? You're asked about your application. If you have divorce decrees or new birth certificates for children, you want to supply them. If you want to modify your name, you can modify your name. So on your naturalization certificate, you can sometimes put your middle name as your last name, and that'll be your choice, and you'll be asked. They'll also give you a civics test and a writing test. You have to show a working knowledge of the English language. You need to be able to speak English. And this is something that's very particular to our office. Some of you who have already been to my office have gotten yelled at for not speaking English. I see your passport, you're here 12 years, and you can't speak English to me? It's absolutely unacceptable. Other lawyers, maybe they don't care. I care, because I care about you, I care about my country, and I care about your children. If there's an emergency, how can you call 911 and say, my child just drank, you can't even say what it is, God forbid, and you're already upset because it's an emergency, okay? Very, very serious, especially with the women, and all you men out there, if your woman is home and you're not letting her go to English classes and she's got children, it's on your head if you're not encouraging her to learn English. It's not, I don't care if they're 80 years old. I've seen women speak English at 80 years old. They speak Wolof and English. But you need to encourage that. It's very, very, very important. And if you're going to try to assimilate in the United States and be part of the community, a woman who goes to Seatown with you and she wants to ask you about the product, if you can't answer her, you can't get to know her, and she's your neighbor. She's speaking Spanish. Not just for the Wolof, believe me. I say the same to the Spanish-speaking clients. It's absolutely unacceptable. And if you come to my office, I will tell you to get English language classes, come back in 3 months. I did that to a woman this morning. She had children, and I said, show me you're serious about your children. Now, she can go to another lawyer. I'm sure they'll be fine with her. But not with me, because I do care about you as a community. I want Senegal to have a good reflection in the community. I care about my country, and I care about your children. Okay? That's important. And I know that the Senegalese Association offers free English classes 2 or 3 times a week. So there should be no reason that anybody's not speaking English. Now, to become a U.S. citizen, you have to show a working knowledge. I had a woman, again, when I first became a lawyer, freelancing, I go to a naturalization interview, and she was Spanish, older woman. I'm sitting there with the application, and the interviewer says, what is your name? Maria Rodriguez, whatever it was. Where you live? Da, 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 with a heavy accent, right? She's doing okay. Then the woman says, have you been married? She says, yes. Okay. What's the name of your first husband? Because she was married twice. She said, what's the name of your first husband? George Washington. I'm sitting there. I don't know this woman. And the interviewer said, I'm sorry, no. What is the name of your first husband? George Washington. The woman just memorized, she thought, first president, because she memorized the answers. True story. True story. So now the officer was very nice, and she politely, said, we'll send you the notice in the mail, the answer in the mail, which I'm sure was a denial. But, by this time you've had a green card. You've been here. You've been working. You can answer the basic questions and do basic writing in English. The civics questions have even gotten easier, if you ask me. If I were the officer, I'd be asking really serious questions. Now it's like, what does the 4th of July stand for? All you have to do is say freedom and a barbecue, But really, what is the 4th of July? Our independence from Great Britain. You know, how many stars are on the flag? Who's your senator? Who's your representative? Online, you can get a printout of all the questions, and it's really easy and interesting, especially if you have children. You can make it a family affair, because the children will be your teachers. Daddy, what's the so-and-so? Or Mommy, what's the, you know, the ambassadors? And have fun with that and learn about the country. Because you're living here, you should do that anyway. So the civics test is not easy, and there's 100 questions listed on the internet which you can easily study. After that, if you don't have any very serious criminal issues, you're going to get granted. Your case will be approved. Also, if you haven't traveled too much, you have to be careful about visiting back home, because if you stay out too many days and you file that application, they will take your application and take your, how much is it now? $675 money order, and then they'll tell you, oh, you stayed out 5 days too much, too long. You have to stay out more, you have to stay in the country more than 50% of the time. You have to be living here, not visiting, okay? If you're going to do that, then don't apply for citizenship, because you're going to be denied, they're going to take your money. You don't have to become a citizen. We don't make you become a citizen. That'll be your choice. I have a lot of people from different countries who say, I really feel an allegiance to my country and I'd rather keep the citizenship, but I want to be a green card holder. That's completely fine. You don't have to become a citizen of the United States. But if you do, you have to know these are some of the responsibilities. What's the processing time for a naturalization application now?
Within the first 3 weeks of filing your citizenship application, you will get a receipt notice. The following 2 weeks, you will get a biometric notice, which is a fingerprint notice. Then it will process for the 6 months, which is the 6-month period. You should be able to receive an interview notice. If you don't, then you should be able to call in and find out what's going on with your application. But that's generally the processing time for your citizenship application.
Mm-hmm. And they've got much faster. I used to wait for marriage cases 2 years. Now they're, you know, within 9 months they're being interviewed and approved. So immigration's really gotten much, much faster in the past, I would say, 3 years. Thank you, Rose. Okay, so let's move on to some of the more complicated things, like relief from removal. So in the old days, they called it deportation. You were in deportation. Now they call it removal proceedings. It sounds a little friendlier. But nevertheless, essentially, one part of the government is trying to kick you out. They're trying to remove you from the United States. When you're in removal proceedings, it means that you've now been placed in front of a judge. So you have the USCIS, which processes all these other applications, and then you have the Executive Office of Immigration Review, the Immigration Court, the Immigration Judge, okay? If you're in those proceedings, you're kind of in trouble because you have to defend yourself and explain why you shouldn't be removed. And the judges give you an opportunity to do that. For example, let's say you've been here 6 months and you get stopped by the police and they put you in immigration detention. Then you get released. Now you have an appointment to see a judge. You have to go to the judge with your lawyer and say, please don't deport me because actually I'm engaged to be married next week to a U.S. citizen. We've been living together for 5 months and we're going to get married next week. That judge might postpone your hearing date until he or she sees that in fact it is a real marriage. Immigration approved it. They did a Stokes. He knows where the toilet paper is. She knows what color his toothpaste is. And they are really married. And you get a green card. The removal proceedings are over. Very, very often within the West African community, we have situations where people ask for the relief of asylum. These are refugee applications. So I'm going to spend a few moments about this because there are technical things that I want you to understand about filing deadlines. Everybody's with me? Okay. So we're talking about the application for asylum. Do we have those applications? Okay, so we're going to hand out these applications. Again, this is just for you to sort of see what questions are asked, all right? Toward the end of this application, they actually ask some political questions. In order to be considered a refugee here in the United States, you have to be granted that status. Now, if you're overseas in a refugee camp and you come over as a refugee, it's different. But if you're in the United States, this is the application you're going to file. Okay? Now, the application is Form I-589. The application actually offers 3 forms of relief. One is called asylum. The other one is called withholding of removal. And the third is relief under the Convention Against Torture. Okay. So we're going to talk today about asylum and withholding of removal and what the differences are. Now, before we even get to the differences, who qualifies to be considered a refugee or an asylee? People who have suffered past persecution and who are likely to suffer future persecution in their home country. Persecution based on what? You killed someone in Dakar, you go back, they're going to arrest you? No. That's not persecution, that's prosecution. They're doing the right thing by arresting you if you go back. You can't get asylum based on that. I, God forbid, wronged some family, and if I go back, that family's going to want blood money or vengeance. I had a lot of Albanian clients, and this was a very common problem. Someone had a fight or accidentally killed a brother, and Albania has a very strong tribal mentality. They now want to kill him for equal revenge. Okay? Blood feuds. That's not going to get you asylum. You have to show that you have and will be persecuted based on your gender, being a woman or a man, based on your social behavior, based on your political belief. There are specific grounds that the United States wants to protect. So, for example, if you're very politically active in, let's say, Guinea, and you have said things about the former president, the current president, you're not allowed to freely speak, and you've been jailed for that. Whether we agree with what you're saying, in the United States, we want you to be able to make political change in your country. Okay, that's a political basis. If you're a female and you've been unfortunate enough to suffer female genital mutilation, female circumcision, l'excision pour les femmes, which should completely be stopped anywhere in the world under any circumstance. If that has happened to you, you will get some form of relief from this application. Okay? If, for example, you have an alternative lifestyle, you are homosexual, you can be protected on that ground. So there are very specific grounds. If you're a young man, you've come to the United States, and your father's very powerful in Bamako, and he wants you to marry this woman in Bamako, but you don't want to because you met Aminata here in New York and you love her. But if you go back, you're going to be forced to marry that woman. The government here will consider protecting you for that. We don't want you to have to go and marry someone that you don't love. That's a form of persecution, okay? Now, timing of the filing is really important because people say, I suffered so much, I was either circumcised or I was put in jail for my political beliefs, but, my lawyer did an application, now I don't have a green card, I only have a work permit and I can't travel. What's wrong? What happened? Did they do a bad job? Not necessarily. As I said, it's the same application for all 3 forms of relief, but if you file your application more than 1 year after you arrived, technically you're not eligible for asylum. Asylum will give you a green card, it will give you a work permit, it will give you legal status, you can become a citizen, you can travel, you can bring over your family. So the best of the 3 forms of relief. But if you file, let's say 2 or 3 years after you arrived in the United States, technically you're supposed to get withholding of removal, which is also slightly different in the standard. But so the government here will say, look, we believe they're going to put you in jail back in Guinea if you go back. We see that you were at the protests and you have an organization for political relief in Guinea. We're not going to send you back. We're going to withhold the removal to Guinea. But that's it. You get a work permit, that's it. Okay? So that filing deadline is very, very technical. Occasionally, you have a situation where there's a reason why you didn't file within the first year. You came here, you're here 9 months, you got into, God forbid, a car accident. You spent some weeks in the hospital, then you were heavily medicated, and your year passed while you were taking this medication and you were in bed with a broken leg. If you can show there were exceptional circumstances, the judge will consider that and still give you the better form of relief, which is asylum. Okay? The tough cases that come across in our office are when we have, let's say, a husband or a wife with children that are still back home who are in danger. They're in danger either because they're going to be cut or one of the family members is going to do something horrible, and the person is over there 1 year, because we can help them, but we won't be able to bring over their children. Recently we've had 2 very, very sensitive cases which got a wonderful judge. God is good. We got a good judge for these cases. The judge was very sympathetic, and the judge actually granted asylum. So now these girls can come over, and they were way over the 1 year. I would say it's not even short of a miracle. I mean, it was amazing. Even the government was shocked. But this woman really proved her case. She was suffering from psychological problems. So a lawyer will look at your case and ask you the right questions. Why didn't you file, etc., etc. Okay? That's refugee status. Now, any questions about that real fast before we move on? Because I know I'm giving you a lot of information. Ma'am? Withholding, the full name of it is on the application. It's called withholding of removal to a specific country. So we know removal means we want to remove you outside the United States. We want to deport you, okay? But a judge is saying, no, we are not going to deport this woman. We are going to withhold her removal to Burkina Faso or to Senegal. But that's all they're going to do. They're just going to protect you from being deported back to that country so you're not hurt. And they'll give you papers to stay here and to work, but not a green card and not traveling documents. Now, does that mean you can never get a green card? No. Because if the next day you walk out of court and you meet the man of your dreams and he's got a passport, he can file for you as long as you came into the country with a passport. Ma'am?
Yes,
Yeah. Absolutely. It depends on the circumstances of their case. So if they could prove that they're from that area, that they somehow suffered because of that civil unrest, and they fear going back, that's a political claim. That's a good example of a political claim. Okay. If she's over the 1 year, she's going to probably just get withholding of removal. So she won't be deported back there, but she won't be able to get more than that. Okay? To file for to really get the asylum. But you know what? At this point, it's better than nothing. You don't have to be nervous that immigration's going to come knocking on your door. And then if in the future the law changes, or you marry somebody or something else, then you try to get the green card later. But try to get your legal status, secured while you can, even if it's for the lower standard. Okay?
Okay, the other question is like, what's up? When you have system and you was denied, and you get the receipt, and also that was denied. So now, you think about getting married. So you don't know, and we ask that question.
That's a very good question, because that's a scenario that comes into the office a lot of times. Person's been here 10 years, did the LULAC, was denied, maybe did an asylum case, also denied, now they're getting married. In a real marriage to a woman or a man with whom they're going to live and have a bona fide marriage. The first thing that should be done is an I-130. Do we have I-130s? We just have the base on the 485. An I-130 should be filed. It's a 2-page application, and it's an application about your relationship. An I-130 could be filed by a U.S. citizen daughter for her mother. Could be from a husband to a wife. Could be a mother to a daughter, a parent to a child, brother to a sister. It's all the I-130. And then you'll check off the relationship, okay? The I-130 should be filed, get the approval. This person, with that approval, has to go back to the judge that denied his or her case. Because once you've been before a judge, doesn't matter if you marry the daughter of the president. Doesn't matter if you marry the president. Well, him it might matter because I'm not sure what his real citizenship is. But anyway, or the wife. Okay? That I-130 has to be approved, and you have to go back to the judge. The judge still has control. And you say, Judge, I'm married to a U.S. citizen now. It's a real marriage. I know you told me I was supposed to leave 5 years ago when you gave me voluntary departure or whatever, and I didn't. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Essentially, that's what we're saying in legal terms. Forgive me for this. That's good. No, because these are questions other people have as well.
The guy holding the green card.
Right.
Like 10 years, but he never filed for the wife.
Right.
So now someone complaining about my husband don't want to passport because, you know, how the problem, they don't want to go to school and they don't want to file it things, they always like missing. So now, what do they have to do? You think if you're holding a green card, you can file for the wife? Yes. No.
Well, he should if he's a good husband and he cares about his wife, right? If it means he has to go to school and learn how to read and write, let him go to school and learn read and write. Because if she gets deported, she's not going to be cooking for him anymore. So,
you always say, I have a green card, I can apply for you. So now the patient.
you can. He can file for her. Yes, it's a longer waiting period, and depending on what her status is, if she's very much out of status, she's going to need a waiver. And in order to be qualifying for that waiver, he has to be a citizen. So it is a little bit technical, but I mean, a lot of times I get cases like this where the husband has a criminal history, and that's why he can't become a citizen. He knows if he tries to become a citizen, not only are they going to deny the citizenship, they're going to take the green card away. And then I face a situation where I do a 10-year case for her, or I get her status based on her own situation. But if the guy has a green card and he's just too lazy, he should do that for his wife, and somebody should, put pressure on him for that.
When you find like a green card holder and you fight for your wife, how long
it takes about 4 years. But again, if she's been here for a long time, out of status, she's not going to get the waiver as a green card petitioner. He's going to have to be a citizen. Right, Marsh? Yeah, that's a very good question, though, ma'am. That's one of the points that you can't have for withholding, is you can't file the I-730, the petition. Let's say someone came in, they're from Ouagadougou. They come in 6 months they file for asylum. They've been circumcised. And they have some children still in Burkina Faso. If they're granted asylum, we can bring the children over in just a few months if they're granted asylum. Not withholding or removal. That's one of the technical points.
Somebody want to ask you, like, if you're sick and you have a heart problem, you got surgery and you're going to live in Africa no more, so you can fight for that?
Not on its own. I mean, there are humanitarian visas to get into the United States. If there's, we only have this one doctor who can do this type of operation, and you're in Senegal and you need to have that operation, you can get a humanitarian visa. But once you're in the United States, that alone is not a reason. I mean, it might be a reason for them not to detain you, but that's not going to be a reason straight away to get papers. Okay? It could support other applications, such as the 10-year case. Okay? And let's transition into that. The 10-year case, the formal name to this application is cancellation of removal. Just as there was withholding of removal, where you're holding back deporting the person, now the judge is canceling the deportation. Straight away, gone, done. No more worry about being deported. It's a very good form of relief. It's a lot of work for you. It's a lot of work for the lawyer's office. I want to tell you what you need to win on this application. You need 3 things essentially. One is you need to prove you've been in the United States for 10 years. Maybe you came in on someone else's passport. No problem. Maybe you came in on your passport and you lost it. No problem. Maybe you walked over the Canadian border. No problem. But if you came in with a French passport, Australian passport, English passport, any visa waiver country, you can't do this case. Okay, that's a detail to that one point. No problem. In order to be eligible for the 10-year case, your way of entering the United States matters. You could walk over the border and come in iwi without inspection. Pas de problème. You can use your friend Fatoumata's passport from Bamako. No problem. And you're from Senegal. But if you use a passport from a visa waiver country, such as France or England, Australia, or you can't do cancellation of removal. And I've had these cases and it kills me because I've got this woman, she's been here 12 years, she's a good mother, she's got 3 children, works hard, pays her taxes, helps poor people, really, really, really good woman. One child has asthma. One child, God forbid, she's going to be circumcised if she goes back. The other child, God forbid, has a learning disability. Can't help her with this case. I could help her with the refugee case, but I can't help her with this because she came in with a French passport, even though it wasn't hers. So that's one of the caveats. So I'm going to take your question just a second. The 3 points are presence, 10 years in the United States. 2, good moral character. You're not arrested for anything very serious. You're paying your taxes. You don't beat up your wife. You don't beat up your children. You're not taking food stamps, or if you did, it was for a short amount of time. That's point number 2, good moral character. The 3rd point, and this is the crux of the application, you have to show that your, in most cases, U.S. citizen children will suffer an exceptional and unusual hardship if they're forced to return into your country. So, for example, the woman that we just talked about, let's say she was from Senegal, she came in with Senegalese passport. She's got these 3 children. One has asthma, one has a learning disability, and one has, she's a female. And she'll be cut because she's from the Fulani tribe. I go to the judge with you next to me and all of our documents that these women keep bothering you about and say, this man, this woman, they've been here 12 years. They've paid their taxes. She's taken care of her children. He's done his best to be a good father. No arrests, nothing serious. If you deport these people, they have to bring their children with them. And if these children go back to Senegal or the Gambia, there's no specialist there for a learning disability. We're lucky that they have schools, let alone some child who has autism isn't going to get special treatment. And if they're coming from a village and you have an autistic child, they might think he has a spirit. And Lord knows what's going to happen. You know. Okay? This girl, her mother's Fulani. She was cut. This girl's going to be cut. There's no way to stop it. The boy, he has asthma. He has an asthma attack in Banjul or in a village. He can die. You're lucky here he can go to the emergency room. This is what I tell to the judge. Your Honor, please give this man and this woman a green card. Not to help them, but to help their children be safe. That's really what the 10-year case is about. It's not so much about you. It's about protecting and keeping your children where they have a good school, or they have their medical doctor, or they'll be safe from something bad happening, because those children are American, and we want to protect our American citizens. That's part of the policy in the United States. Now, if you're from England, you're not going to win the case, because in England, they have good doctors. They have specialists for autism, and circumcision doesn't happen, thank God, for the most part. Okay? So that's what the 10-year case is. It's an excellent form of relief. Now, if you've had a previous immigration file, let's say you did an asylum application the first year you came here, and you say, Miss Teresa, I've been here 15 years. But I'm looking at your papers, I'm saying, yeah, physically you've been here 15 years, but when you came here, you filed an immigration application that stopped counting your time. Not all applications will do that, like a LULAC case won't do that. Marriage cases usually don't do that. But if you go before a judge in a refugee case,